Story 6. I'm sitting here, totally panicking. It's 2:30 a.m. and I just found my son outside. I'm still trembling, but I'll try to explain as clearly as I can. Years ago, we lived in a different house. One night, I woke up because I heard some noises from another part of the house. I quietly opened my bedroom door and saw a light on in my son's study, which was next to the kitchen. Since our house was only a few blocks away from a bad neighborhood, I immediately thought someone had broken in and was rummaging through my son's things. My son had come into my room a few hours earlier, and I assumed he was still asleep in my bed. I walked through the house, ready to confront the intruder, only to find out it was my son. In my groggy state, I thought he was still in bed. It turned out he had woken up, couldn't fall back asleep, and decided to go to his room to browse the internet. I almost confronted my own son, thinking he was a burglar. Now, in our current house, we have both a screen door and a wooden door. The wooden door has a deadbolt, and you need to remember to take the house keys with you. If you lock that wooden door, there's no getting back in without a spare key or someone inside to open the door for you. About an hour ago, I woke up to the sound of the front door. I immediately reached for my phone and checked the security camera by the entrance. To my shock, I saw my son standing there, looking a bit shaken. There was no doubt it was him. I know my son anywhere. He was wearing the same clothes he had on earlier today, a white button-down shirt and blue pants. I was 100% sure it was him. I had no idea what he was doing outside, but there he was. Confused, I turned over and saw my son fast asleep. Remembering the incident from our previous house, I used my phone screen to shine a light on him and confirmed it was definitely him and he was definitely in bed. At this point, I was really perplexed. I got up and walked through the house to the front door. When I walked into the living room, our cat looked up at me, half asleep. She's usually very curious about what's going on outside, and I would have thought she'd be trying to see what was happening when she heard the screen door slam, but she didn't seem to react. I stood by the door and called out, "Who's there?" "It's me." "Hurry up and let me in. I'm freezing." I went out because I heard something but forgot to take my keys with me. That sounded just like my son. The voice, the accent, the knowledge of where his keys were, everything matched. But I couldn't believe it because I had just seen him asleep in bed with my own eyes. "Wait a second," I told him. I went back to the bedroom and woke my son up. "This is really strange. You have to see this." I opened the camera app and showed him the front door. The person was still there, looking around, wondering what I was doing, because all I had to do to let him back in was turn the handle on the deadbolt and open the door. My son said, "What the heck? When was this recorded?" I told him, "It's not. It's live. You're standing outside by the door. I just went down and asked who it was, and your voice told me it was you, and that you wanted to come back in because you're cold and left your keys in your bag." My son got up and peeked through the bedroom window, which has a view of the front door. He gasped and quickly drew the curtains. The look on his face was unforgettable. He was terrified. "That's me," he exclaimed. At this point, I was wide awake and freaking out. I was talking to my son, physically touching him, but there he was outside, in the same clothes he wore today, with the same hair and glasses. We walked into the living room, and I grabbed a big flashlight. It's super bright, made of solid metal, perfect for blinding someone or defending ourselves if needed. We headed back to the door. "What is your name?" I asked the figure outside. He told me his full name, including his middle name. It was correct. "What is your date of birth?" I asked. He told me, and it was correct. "What did we have for dinner tonight?" He answered that too and mentioned that I cooked it, which was also correct. I could hear my real son standing next to me, trying to catch his breath because he was so scared. I nudged him and whispered, "Ask him something only you would know." After a moment of thought, he asked, "What did Dad change in my old room the last time we stayed with Grandpa?" There was a pause. "Who is he?" the person outside said. "Why won't you let me in? You know it's me. You're starting to annoy me here. Who's inside with you? Is this a recording? What's going on here?" I insisted, "Answer the question." "What changed in your room
After
when we
another
last
pause,
visited?" He finally answered, "Oh." A second bed was added because Max and Damien, my brother-in-law's two children, sleep there when they visit Mom and Dad. My son gasped audibly. Now we were both really worried. I took his hand and led him back to the bedroom, turning on the lights. We stayed awake, watching the cameras. The other person had walked into the backyard. probably to look for a spare key, but that was about 40 minutes ago, and we hadn't seen him since. I was too scared to go to bed, afraid this person who knew everything about my son might find a spare key and get inside. I didn't know who they really were or what they wanted, but I couldn't sleep. Story 7. I have been traveling most of my life, and due to duty I have to visit different countries. In mid-2017, I arrived in Philippines for some projects which were agriculture and technology sector project to develop the area and help in its improvement. I decided to settle down because I was late 38 and still single. I requested my company to send my salary to local banks, which is sent every 3 months, but it was stopped because of too much red tape, especially since my salary was higher than usual in the Philippines. I was asked to produce various documents and IDs and various things, so I did as they asked. But in the end, he still didn't do much justice, having to resort to elbows to get through. This was also red tape in addition to the tax deduction, meaning 45% was taken out of my hard-earned income in summary. Some officials also provided solutions, but all were subject to commission, which could be rigid due to the relationship of the people participating in the process. Then I remembered that I had invested in a hedge fund company in Europe. Knowing the risk, but at least protected my investment back in case the dollar at percent hit the fan. This was true abroad, but certainly not for the Philippines. I managed to find 3 of these companies, and I decided to take a risk with a company called Bear International under the CEO in mid-2019. I invested some money that instead moved huge red tape through clients' businesses. His business has been established in the Philippines since the 1960s and is recognized and respected. All taxes are paid by me, and all taxes are paid without any problem. The funds went directly to Beer International and were received by the CEO Neil Toto at the office in Ortigas, Tektite building. My contracts were drawn up and notarized, but noticed it was linked to another company, Lexicon Bank, Hong Kong, Vanuatu. This crypto bank was created and managed by a man named Wakwar, who nicknamed himself Lord because he apparently lived and worked in the UK for 10 years and probably earned it in his own warped brain. He posted on social media, open for all to see, that he is head of Bear International and Lexicon Bank, Hong Kong, Vanuatu. And after further investigation, it was found that he is also the criminal behind the Black Bear Ventures Corporation company in the Philippines, who is also a partner with Nathaniel P. Espinola. In fact, he stole investors' money and disappeared off the screen for a few years, and when the smoke cleared, he formed Bear Mountain World International. This was achieved without getting caught by linking a Filipino with an American passport and taking money through crypto and other means. Using investors' money to buy the best lawyers, they use our society's legal systems to protect them while they live a stress-free, pro-poverty life for free. A few checks clear without a hitch, then COVID-19 strikes, which brings everything to a standstill and spreads a bit of panic. I decided to get out of the contracts even if I do so. But the crafty criminal took advantage of the scenario and fled the country with his family. Before he could be booked and barred from leaving the country, his sidekick and love interest Danilyn bears a child with him, a boy. Left together, but did not dare to stay near him in the country where he is now hiding because of his legal wife and child with him. Countless messages and communications of lies and unbelievable solutions to return our capital, and to date, March 2024, nothing has been returned to us. More than 90 investors are involved, and more than $50 million has been stolen. This seems to be the trigger for other scams that have popped up with other similar schemes that have affected others like me. From investment scams to high-profile jigsaw scams and real estate scams. Sadly, some investors have already passed. Poor people lost their lives. Others are too afraid to file a case with the authorities, and others, no offense, are just plain ignorant and blame others for their stupid addictive ways. I don't understand that since there was any case or complaint in court, policed by these people, why they were allowed to open business, and why were they allowed to roam free? Even if it had been years, did their crimes have an expiration date? As soon as it expired, he escaped punishment. I believe that is why there are more scams in the Philippines now, and there are con artists and scam artists who are scamming everyone, because they just slap on the wrist and their files and cases are gone. That is, instead of punishing them, they are supported. These people resort to sex, religion, politics, and fake identities to boost their credibility and obscure their true purpose of existence thanks to social media. Would it be better to create a good example of these people? I think it is necessary to expose these people, and using their social media accounts or identities to pay off the people they stole from and provide more money to pay the government. The 24/7 reality of these crooks will affect the reality of every scammer who wants to get rich quick doing things like this. Utilization of monetized amount for future benefits of the country. For other countries also in this case. I will ask for a commission for this great idea, as I was also removed from all investors in Bayer International Lexicon Bank, Hong Kong, Vanuatu. I am not greedy like these criminals and fraudsters and just want my money back from my family foundation that I worked for, since my misfortune and judgment have now reduced me to poverty. Who do we really blame? Government? There are very few good, powerful politicians. Red tape? Baco? Who man? Scammers. Our own survival instincts? Or just our own ignorance? New losses and scams in the Philippines will not end until a few people like me and my group expose the truth of such people to warn everyone. Trying to catch and expose these criminals and yet be criminalized by a law that protects people like me. Why? Because these thieves use our own hard-earned money against us. Story 8. This girl I met a few months ago has become one of my closest friends, not in the kind where you and friends get along normally and get along, but the kind where you both are very similar and only get each other. Before I knew her, I always liked her like a kid. When you first saw her, she was playing games with my friends when they introduced me to her, and after that I immediately had a soft spot for him. And then we bonded as the party grew, as we talked to each other about our desires, goals and aspirations in life, and revealed goals and ambitions, as well as mentioned the difficulties and challenges we facing at the time. Even after the party we acted like friends, but there was something different in the mood. It was clear that there was a hidden romance in the air, as we often hinted at each other, but neither of us had yet revealed or made the first move. I'm past like this. During this time, I became addicted to drugs, and drugs began to affect me in a strange way. My mental health was getting worse and worse mentally. I was losing control of myself. I was going into depression. I fell because I felt awkward about how I was doing and thinking. But the girl, don't be offended, I'll call her N, convinced me that I was enough and worth it, so I began a knowing chapter of my life. I left my friend group to heal myself mentally and physically. I was gone for about 9 months. I then rejoined the group when I went to college with them. I contacted all of them, especially N, and it seemed like no day had passed between us. A year of working on myself, as well as being in touch with my friends and M, was a pleasant experience. But the year was coming to an end. A Prism and N and most of my friends were 1 year older than me, and being older meant leaving college. We all had an understanding that we would all be changing our spectator paths after this season, as most of my friends were growing up and taking on new responsibilities. N made several attempts to approach me, but I did not return the effort, because I was sure that I was not yet the man she deserved, and I was afraid. My emotions, my fear, and my pride got in the way of dating N, and will forever regret it. After that time passed, and N met another boy far away in the city, and they started talking, and one thing led to another, and they got together. It's near the end of summer, and N and I are still good friends though. I think the romance between us never went away, because last night we all went out and it felt like the old days, me and N against the world. We were drunk and we had an amazing time, and while confessing how much we missed being around each other, I thought this might be what I needed, so I ended things. Could change and take the risk this time, but before I could get anything out, she told me she was going away. By last night I found out that N is planning to move to the city. We are a boy who studies there for 3 years to go to university. I am angry, worried, and sad too. If I am leaving, I have loved N and dreamed of spending the rest of my life with him, and I truly believe he is the one. But it is too late. I don't know what to do now, what to think, how to manage. But I don't think I can do anything because I'm too late and I've waited too long. She moves in 4 days. I will regret not taking action earlier and sooner, because I can no longer interfere with his goals and ambitions, because I want what is best for him. I don't want you to be here anymore if it means being without him. So if you've listened this far, take the risk, even if it doesn't work out. At least you know and won't be left wondering what could have happened. The pain of regret is a bitter one. Don't make the same mistake with me. Thank you for listening. Bye, and I love you, N.